Like, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, tonight's roll call. Director France is not here, but she's on her way, so she should be joining us here in just a few minutes, so she's coming. With that, we have a section on the open forum. With the open forum, in accordance to our board policy 203, it's a 15-minute time period set aside to receive citizen input through the open forum segment. Input from students, staff, parents, and community members is valuable, and the board appreciates taking time to speak with us this evening. Speakers will not be allowed to verbally attack, disparage, or potentially defame individual board members, employees, or students, nor may speakers use vulgar or profane language. Speakers unwilling to conform to the rules will lose their privilege to speak. Board members will listen respectfully to presenters but will not engage individuals during this time. The board will not deliberate or take action during the open forum regarding any issue presented. If any follow-up is needed, the superintendent or designee will get back to you. The vice chair clerk will put up a yellow card when you have 15 seconds left and a red card when you need to stop. When you do come up to speak to the board, if you could please state your name and your relationship to the district. And with that, I'll call our first speaker, Stacy Buckingham.
Hello everyone, my name is Stacy Buckingham. I am a parent here in the district. I've got two kiddos currently in school. Carter is in 8th grade at Hidden Oaks, and then Kaylin is an 11th grader at the high school. I am just here tonight to talk about what I've seen this school year. And my biggest concern is lying in our class sizes. My daughter's history class has 42 kids in it. That is the highest, but all of her classes have high 30s to low 40s. She's so grateful that she ended up signing up for MinCaps because she has so few kids in her class. She feels like she can actually get to know her teachers and that they can get to know her. On back to school night or whatever we called it at the high school, I bopped around to all their classes and I got to sit down and talk with their teachers. And I just asked them, like, how can you teach this many kids? How do you feel like you can offer them what this district is priding itself on independence and individualized education, when it's physically impossible to get around to that many children in an hour? I have my master's degree in education. I spent a lot of years teaching in classrooms, so I feel like I can speak with some sort of background on this. That's at our high schools, where they are more independent, but we know that there was a giant learning loss last year. And our teachers are being forced to combat not only learning loss, but now these giant class sizes. And I don't see how it's fair. And I don't see how technology has somehow become the focus of where our money needs to be spent. I can see that we can spend money on classroom teachers. I could support that wholeheartedly. I don't see how more technology is going to help our students. We've seen test scores declining over these past, 2016, as I saw, and the graph just dips down. And as technology goes up, I don't think our students are getting smarter. I don't think they are becoming more capable. I don't think they are becoming better people. I think they are somewhat becoming zombies. We know the pediatricians recommend no more than 2 hours of screen time a day for our students. We know that kids are, quite frankly, addicted. We have to set screen time limits on our own children at home just because that's what they want to spend their time on. So I would love if they could get to school and not have screens. Teachers can have smart boards and teachers can utilize these great teaching tools. I think that's excellent. But I just am so concerned about class sizes from our kindergartners all the way up to our 12th graders, and I really wish that that would be a focus of our spending and not more technology. Thank you.
Rick Storley.
Hello, board. My name is Rick Storley. I have 2 children in the Prior Lake School District. On the 25th of June, I had some questions on the equity resolution, and I emailed you as the board and got a response from Stacy. We went back and forth a few times. I was asking about 14 terms that the board used in the resolution and asking for definitions. And the last response was July 7th, and I was told that the staff and administration will be putting together some definitions in regards to the resolution and will go on the website. So as of October 11th, for a resolution that's already passed, no definitions are found on the website. So since the board is unwilling or unable to define these terms, I've done my own research, and the conclusion that I've been led to is critical theory. So let me help with the definition that I came up with. Critical theory is an ideology that divides the world into dominant oppressor groups and subordinate oppressed groups along the lines of race, sexual orientation, and gender identity. It sees oppressed groups as being subordinated to oppressor groups by something it calls hegemonic power, which is the ability of the dominant group to impose its values on the culture. Critical theory originated in a group of Marxist intellectuals in the 1920s and 30s. Critical theory is not an analytical tool one can turn on and off. It's an all-encompassing worldview, a new religion where God is comprised of intersectionality, standpoint epistemology, postmodernism, ethnic Gnosticism, and for our kids, identity politics. It is a pseudo-reality where truth is based on a 5, 10, or 15-year-old's lived experiences or lack thereof. And the Equity and Inclusion Resolution affirms these lies as truth, no matter how inconceivable. But what is truth? Well, the Equity Resolution mentions gender and racism 8 and 10 times. Gender is affirmed as a non-binary social construct, and 9th grade health uses the genderbread person to teach our students that there are an infinite number of genders. Race is used to divide students based on skin color, all lies on subjective truth. Objective truth tells us race is a social construct defined by the heretical belief of polygenesis, where ethnicities have different origins. The concept was developed by Samuel Morton and historically used to advance racial inequality. We are all created in the image of God as male and female. Biology and science confirms gender is binary, and there are no genetic differences between ethnicities, and therefore only one human race. Is this how inclusion is defined? Is this education? No, is this indoctrination? Telling students subjective lies are objective truth. We are demanding that the board revoke the equity resolution and remove all gender theory curriculums from Prior Lake Savage Area schools immediately. Furthermore, we demand a new resolution is passed banning critical theory in Prior Lake Savage Area schools. We will continue to pray for all of you to turn away from supporting these lies and put your faith and trust in Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Thank you.
Jody Burley.
Hello, board members, superintendents, admins, and fellow parents. My name is Jody Burley, and I'm a Prior Lake resident with 3 children in the district, senior, sophomore, and freshman, or 8th grade. I've been attending the board meetings for a few months now, learning the interactions and processes, and I have a few observations that I want to share with you all because they seem to tie back to the levies. I appreciate the material that you have put together for the current levy. I do watch and read it, as I want to make an informed decision, because at the end of the day, it impacts our children. I voted yes for the last levy, as it seemed like a good idea for the kids, teachers, and community at the time. It was a lot of money, and quite frankly, I'm surprised it's all gone. I know we built a lot of new things, and of course that all costs money, but are our kids better off? This technology level confuses me.
Jody, this is supposed to be teacher support.
It is getting there.
Okay, but we can't be talking about the levy because the levy's on the agenda.
Gotcha. So I'll switch it then to teacher support.
Okay.
Which is part of this. But what I wanted to say is that I guess it's the same message that Stacy Buckingham had. I feel like we need more support for our teachers. That funding should be given to our teachers. Technology is a great tool. I worked in technology. I get that it is expensive, But I feel like that money could be better served with our teachers through, you know, I think it's a contract year for them. How can we help support them better? Class sizes are huge. My kid has to have class every other day because of the classes being so large. And I don't think that's fair to them or the teachers. So I guess in conclusion, I think that the money is better spent on teachers so that they can focus on raising our test scores, because they are getting lowered year after year after year. But I do appreciate your time and assistance in this matter. Thank you.
Jessica Olson?
Those who know me know I have notes. Good evening, Dr. Stallo, board members, teachers, and staff, beloved community members and families. My name is Jessica Olstad. I am a proud Laker, having lived in this awesome community for the past 8 years. I am a PTC volunteer and mom to a 5th grader and 2nd grader at Hamilton Ridge, our beautiful new elementary school. It's so good to be in that building. For the first time since it was built, we had our first PTC meeting of the year in person, and it was fabulous. On behalf of my husband, Jay, and I thank you for the steadfast support you have shown us as families. We know that you have had to make very difficult decisions in the last year or so, some that you never thought you would ever have to make. We're so blessed in this community. We have a great community who steps in to help each other, great neighbors, great events, differing opinions that educate us all and open our eyes to new perspectives and different points of view, because at the end of the day, we are all here for our kids. My husband and I always try to put things in perspective. We're 20 miles away from schools like Lucy Laney, who barely have books, and their students walk through gunshots to get to school. Those kids aren't those kids are our kids. And these kids in Prior Lake Savage, they are our kids. We need to look out for them and the blessed teachers and staff who think of them as their own, many of whom I know are here tonight, and many of whom I know personally and have deep respect for. They need things. They need things in their classrooms to educate and to teach our kids better. I will always support this district, and I will also always question it. That is my right as a taxpayer, as a citizen, as a parent, and as an advocate for my child. We love our district. We pray for you all daily. Our community is growing. They're building houses wherever there is room. Prior Lake and Savage, they are communities that are attracting really good people, and they're coming for a wonderful quality of life that I know that we can provide them. Our school district needs to measure up, and there's some things that are needed. I truly appreciate you all, and I know it's been a crazy couple of years. Nothing that any of us in this room could have ever planned for or strategized over or even known what to do with. These are unprecedented times, and I know that word is thrown out a lot. Quite frankly, it's getting a little old, isn't it? That unprecedented word. But I think we're there, and we need things. And so I really appreciate you allowing us to talk to this, and thank you so much.
Okay. All right. With that, I will look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So made.
By Jonathan, second.
Second.
By Michael. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That passes 7-0. The consent agenda items are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion. On tonight's consent agenda, we have the financials, the check wire transfer disbursement summary, the wire transfer EFT and ACH banking activity, the bank reconciliation statement from the months of June, July, and August 2021, the building bond investment report, the monthly wire detail, the monthly health dental wire detail, the monthly check detail, the monthly ACH detail, the approval of the school board minutes on the board meeting of September 8th, and the study session on September 27th. Personnel items, the candidates for employment, resignations, terminations, non-renewals as listed. We also have some district retirements. I'll make note of those. Margie Atwood, the special ed para at Five Hawks for 17 years of service, along with Diane Sales, the kid company's assistant at Jeffers Pond for 24 years of service. Thank you very much for your many years of service. Leaves of absence as listed, and the District Curriculum Advisory Committee membership. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So made.
By Enrique, a second?
Second.
By Amy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Resolution for the acceptance of gifts. Do I have a motion to accept the resolution of gifts as in your packet?
So made.
By Mary, second. By Julie. This is a roll call vote. Julie?
Aye.
Mary?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 7-0. Next up is Laker Pride. Dr. Stallo. I think we have the Rotary first.
Actually, we've got a
Oh,
slight change
sorry.
in the agenda. Good evening, board members and community. We do have a slight change in Laker Pride. The Lakefront Music Fest folks were planning on being here this evening. They will come next month. There was a conflict with their schedule, so they will come next month. However, we also have another very special Laker Pride. Josh, I'd ask you to come up just next to me for a minute, and then I know you and your principal are going to share some information. Josh Masinkovich, am I saying that right? Well, I wasn't even close. Let's say that and get it on.
Marcinkevich.
Excellent. Josh is an Eagle Scout who is not only a Five Hawks graduate, but he's a high school student who has chosen as his Eagle Scout project to give back to the school that he attended, the teachers, the peers that he attended with, and really to support our continued focus on environmental education and the eSTEM work that we are so proud of across the district. So I want to thank Josh for the incredible time, energy, and effort that he went into this project. I also want to thank you. You could have done a whole lot of things. And for you to do something that's going to benefit other students right now and for years to come says a lot about who you are and your character, and I know that's a huge part of this project as well. So with that, I'm going to have Josh and principal at Five Hawks, Katie Sherman, share some information about this as we celebrate an amazing accomplishment and an amazing student. Thank you.
Right, well, Dr. Stallo just welcomed you and explained a little bit about your project, so I'm going to let him take it away. Thanks for having us this evening.
As you just heard, I attended Five Hawks from 1st through 5th grade, and I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun being outside in the Outdoor Learning Center. And right now, I'm a 10th grader at the Prior Lake High School, and I was thinking about doing my project back in October 2020, and then I thought of Five Hawks right away, so I asked Ms. Schumann. So I started back in October 2020, and it was finished in September 2021. And over those months, I have coordinated with many city officials, the school board, and companies to make these signs. A key detail in the making of these signs was to make them portable, or the sign part removable, because there's a lot of vandalism at the school. In May 2021, the school board decided on plastic lumber borders and normal wood for the 4x4 posts for good durability. My Scoutmaster thought it would be a good idea to see if Five Hawks had anything that needed to be done for more service hours, because it's good to help more than just doing one project. Ms. Schumann said the rain garden needed to be cleaned, so I had 2 groups come out 2 different dates, and we cleared 38 bags full of just debris and sticks.
It was actually Mrs. Mullen who had that great idea.
I had 2 of my neighbors help me with cutting all the materials. It took a whole day, 7 hours to cut everything. We did 45-degree cuts for the corners, and then we inlaid the sign into the sides for good looks. On the sign installation day, I had many people come to help with my project. A couple of the school watchdogs came, and a lot of my fellow scouts. The whole project took around 3 hours to finish. At the start, the whole group did one sign together, then we split up into 2 groups to finish the last 4 signs. To install the posts, we dug the hole, got the 4x4 level, and set with supports. Finally, we poured the concrete and waited for it to be set. The next day, my parents and I went to backfill the holes and take off the supports. And then here's a list of all the donors that helped with my project. First, my grandparents put in $100, and my grandpa, he was an Eagle Scout, so he was really proud of me. And then Home Depot gave us a $50 discount for all the wood and concrete. And then Ace Hardware gave us a 20% discount for $19 off. Then my neighbor let me use his power tools for the day. And then the Lions Club, our charter organization, gave us $467. And then my parents paid the rest, which was about $100.
And Josh, I'm going to have you stay here. And what I would like to do is highlight 2 of our favorite things at Five Hawks, outdoor learning and kids, and show you a little bit about how the signs that Josh made for us really have impacted the learning that we're doing in the Outdoors Center. There is a group of 2nd graders celebrating Josh's accomplishment right after they used it. The signs, I'm not sure if Josh made it clear, but the signs actually outline all 4 seasons and what students can look for as far as wildlife and then plant life. And so we anticipate that we will be using these year-round. And so a lot of the classes have been out in the Outdoor Learning Center, noticing what he has pointed them to for the fall. So a connection to a topic or subject area is a really important first step in learning. And what we have found is going outdoors really creates that emotional connection to what students are discussing in their classrooms. Here's a 5th grade class working on some scientific drawings of the prairie flora. In addition, we tell kids all the time that strong readers vary the spaces in which they're reading, and and you can see Josh's sign in the background. This is another alternate space where our kids love to read. Our dogs have been instrumental in creating outdoor classroom spaces for us, and this was added last year when we came back in hybrid learning to provide outdoor spaces and take mask breaks. This is at the rise of in the prairie. The marsh is actually probably the most favorite place where our kids go because of the floating dock that you see that actually bridges the entire pond in the marsh. They can lay on their bellies and they get eye to eye with all sorts of the creatures that live in the water. It also provides alternate learning spaces, and you can see kind of the length of that floating dock. We feel really lucky that we have these. The pond is a whole nother area. You can see the kids there reading the sign. It is rich with pond vegetation and waterfowl, and then in the winter it's actually a safe, smooth place where we go snowshoeing. So we use it all year round. The forest is our favorite spot. This is an observation deck, and then we want to invite everybody because right now this is what our trees look like, and it is absolutely stunning in our outdoor learning space, and the kids use it all the time. Here we have a 2nd grade group looking for the Five Hawks hidden alphabet. We use the forest for tree identification studies. Our 3rd graders write fractured fairy tales, and they go there to get the setting fixed in their head. It's a perfect setting for that, and just in general activating all 5 senses when they're doing their writing. Chickadee Landing is another outdoor learning space. It's the closest to the building and gets used all the time. This is a 4th grade class finishing up some of their scientific drawings after they adopted their trees one day. And a big important piece of our outdoor learning space is the exploration and just the play that it provides for our kids. I watched this kindergarten group on the right, and the collaboration and the cooperation that it took to move those big sticks was really remarkable. This is the entire first grade that extends way back, that went on a nature hike to look for some of the things Josh had highlighted in his signs. We love the OLC, and we want to invite everybody, all community members, all school board members, everybody to use it and enjoy it as much as we do. So thanks for having us this evening. Anything else?
All right. Next up is personnel items. Jim.
I have one for you tonight. School board members, board chair, Superintendent Stallo, I bring a recommendation forward for adding 4 additional support staff. These staff would be placed focused on the primary grade levels, particularly in kindergarten, where we have a couple of buildings that have a little higher than average class sizes, and that would definitely help out with little ones and routines and small group work and that sort of thing. So we would use COVID dollars for this, and so I bring that forward as a recommendation.
All right, do I have a motion to accept the additional educational support staff request as listed?
So made.
By Mary, second?
Second.
By Jonathan. Any comments or questions? Mary?
Jim, could you just elaborate on the qualifications of the support staff and the areas that they would be in?
So this would be a support staff for all kids. So this is not a special ed para. So they could work in any environment, not just with a certain population. And talking with the principals, that seemed like a crucial thing to be able to do, especially in the primary grades where you have kindergartners and first graders that, for the most part, haven't been in school. So that whole idea of routines at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, small group work to help out, support some of that seemed critical, and they could be used in any one of the classrooms with any students.
And where will this be advertised so we can start
We already posted the
Already
positions.
posted it, okay.
Yep, there's already applications going in. We're already starting to talk to people and set up interviews, so.
Fantastic.
Yep.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. No unfinished business. New business, a resolution as in your board packet. Julie.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Stallo, we have Matt Hammer here tonight. It says Jeff Seeley in your board packet, but Matt is here tonight to talk about the bond refunding. It turned out very well, and I'll let him talk about the savings for our district taxpayers.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, board members. My name's Matt Hammer, and I work on the team of advisors with Jeff Seeley for the district. And I get the opportunity to get ahead of Jim tonight. Normally I'm following him, but I get the opportunity to get ahead of him tonight. So we took bids last Thursday morning and have outstanding results to share. We ended up with a 0.4% interest rate, or 0.47% interest rate, about 30 basis points better than the 0.8% we were anticipating. In kind of macro scale, that means about just shy of $1 million, $975,000 of future value savings for district taxpayers over the next 6 years. So I think we have really good news to share in that regard. We ended up with 10 bids. It was JP Morgan out of New York that ended up being the winning bidder. And you had a lot of interest in your bonds last Thursday. So with that, I can answer any questions folks have. There is some information that was provided as part of the sale day report, but if there's any specific questions, I can answer them.
I had one, just, and Julie may be able to answer it, as a savings per month average, do you have that, like, for the taxpayer? Well, you know how we were talking about
It's-
$1 or $2 a month, like, to.
Oh, to our taxpayers?
Yeah.
It's around $1 a month
Okay.
for the average home
For the
owner.
average, okay. For the 6 years?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Julie, or Mary, sorry.
Yeah, I just want to qualify. When we originally voted on this, we estimated an $800,000 savings. So now you're saying it's $975, so we actually made $175,000 more than we anticipated?
Yep, the bids with the premium and the better interest rate we had, we ended up with about $175,000 better than we anticipated with the initial results. So didn't quite get to $1 million, but got darn close. So,
Good, thank you.
That's good. Any other questions? I know we've talked about this in our previous study session, so, and the savings, okay? All right, with that, I know I have to read the resolution here, the wording, and then we have to do a roll call vote. The resolution reads, the resolution relating to $12,540,000 general obligation alternative facilities and capital facilities refunding bonds, Series 2021A, ratifying the award of sale, prescribing the form and details, and providing the parent payment thereof. Do I have a motion to accept this resolution?
So made.
By Amy, seconded by Mary. This is a roll call vote. Amy?
Aye.
Enrique?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
And Mary?
Aye.
Julie? Aye. Aye. That passes 7-0. Thank you.
yeah, thank you guys very much.
Next up is our audit, final audit report.
As you know, we have Jim Eichten here, principal for MMKR, our district auditors. This is their second year of being in the district, auditing the district's finances. As you know, we're audited every year. And so he will go over some of the highlights from our audit. You had an in-depth at the board work session, but Jim will go over the highlights for this year. Oh, well, let me start that for you.
Thanks, Julie. Superintendent, members of the board, administration, my name is Jim Eichten with MMKR CPAs, here to give a presentation on the audit results for the year ended June 30th, 2021. As Julie referenced, I was here at the work session to go over in great detail what the audit results were. So I'm going to touch on the highlights this evening as part of this presentation. So it is a requirement in state law that the district have an annual audit of its financial statements. The school district does take that financial statement to an improved level and actually issues what's called a comprehensive annual financial report. That financial report is about 118 pages long. If you have an opportunity, it has a lot of great content and a lot of great information, a lot of historical financial data as well. The district does receive a certificate of achievement, typically, on that financial statements annually. We anticipate this year that you'll receive that certificate as well. That particular financial statement is required to be audited by an independent certified public accountant, which is really my role with the district here. So as part of that role, I do provide opinions on those financial statements, that comprehensive annual financial report. We're also required to audit as part of this process your internal controls, specifically to financial reporting activities, your compliance with various laws and regulations that relate to those financial activities, as well as compliance with various standards as it relates to, the aids and financial obligations that you receive. I'm also, as part of this process, required to complete what's called the single audit of federal awards. At this time, we did not complete that process. A lot of the data and regulations around those federal revenues that came in, some of the new revenues that came in, as part of some of those stimulus packages, the regulations aren't complete as of right now. And so we completed the regular audit, the standard audit, and issued the district's financial statements so that they are issued on a timely basis. And we'll be completing the single audit of federal awards over the next few months, and then we'll report back to the board with those results at that time. So as part of the audit process, I do issue what's called a management report, and in that management report, I go through the audit results for the year. This year, the audit results are excellent. This is very good news this evening. I'll touch on some of the results this year, certainly, but the audit results are very positive from that regard. First and foremost, we were able to issue what's called an unmodified opinion on that comprehensive annual financial report. Was the opinion you were looking for? I like to use the word clean, albeit unmodified is the technical verbiage in place. We did not have any findings in that internal control report and compliance report I mentioned in my comments that were put forth. We did have a couple of findings which I find very minor in nature and actually find I won't say consistent, but they are findings that we found in a number of audits this year, and I'll kind of relay the reasons for that. The first one is we did find as part of our testing that the district's compliance with Minnesota legal compliance did not occur in the payment of bills. So the standard, the Minnesota statutes require that the district pay its obligations within 35 days of receipt of invoices. And so for two of the items we tested, we found that those payments did not occur within that statutory requirements. At this point, it was 2 of 40 that we tested. This particular payment statute or finding, we're finding in almost all of our audits this year, and specifically relates to the operations that were happening related to COVID. There were a lot of delays and a lot of operational challenges, if you can say, in that environment, and as a result of that, you're finding late payments in almost all of our audits this year. The second finding we have here relates to the filing of the other post-employment benefit reporting form. The district does have a trust to accumulate assets for OPEB obligations, and in that trust, the Office of the State Auditor requires the district to file a reporting form, which really reports to them the activity in that particular fund. That particular form was filed late this past year, and why that occurred is actually a little bit outside of the district's bounds in that they consult with outside organization to file that, and that organization actually filed it late. That is still a finding for the district, obviously, because you were required to file it, but it was really outside of the requirements of the people working in the district office, and they were relying on outside counsel for that particular requirement. So as it relates to these particular findings, it is important that the board understand that the importance of this particular findings come to what is the corrective action. So as part of the documents you received this evening, there is a filed corrective action plan that the district has put forth and anticipate that these findings will go away as far as next year. Well, before I move on, I do want to touch on that particular area. If you were listening to me last year, you'll find that there were findings that were reported, and one of the positive aspects of this particular audit this year, that none of those findings repeated itself. We were able to eliminate, as part of the audit and as part of the diligent work of the staff, those findings. So thus, kind of going back to that corrective action plan, the importance of it, and really taking those actions to heart, and that happened as part of the audit process this year and throughout the year. So moving on to the second part of my presentation, that really is the financial results. My audit report does provide some financial results for the year, and it really starts with some of the funding formulas and some of the funding that's coming to school districts. And you can see this particular graph shows the funding over the last decade or so. The districts in the state have been living with, if you will, about a 2% increase in aids over the last, well, since 2015, which is quite a while ago. You'll see that there was some increases in 2022 and 23, but again, really limited to that 2%, 2.45% for 2022. As you might anticipate, when I look at that particular graph, that is a challenge for most school districts, as the rate of inflation, the rate of cost of doing business is certainly higher than that. And you just kind of, it feeds on itself as every year, year after year, you're living in that. You're getting 2%, but spending more than that from an inflation perspective. We do provide information on statewide fund balances and statewide equity positions. Overall, this particular graph is showing really the state's calculation of fund balances as a percentage of expenditures, which is a widely used fund balance. I'll actually get to the district's numbers a little bit later as it relates to your individual policies. But as you can see here, the blue line actually shows the equity position of the district from the state's calculation. You can see it's very consistent. The equity position has changed very little over the last decade or so. It really shows good, solid financial management on the part of the district to be able to keep those fund balances at consistent levels over those period of time is exceptional in terms of financial management. The district fund balance is a little bit lower than what the statewide levels are, but that again is guided by a policy that the board approves annually. And I'll show you some of the numbers when I get into the general fund a little bit. But as you can see that the state's fund balances, albeit higher than yours, shouldn't be a challenge for the district, as you have been operating on such a consistent basis over the past decade. We do provide information in your report on the revenues on a per student basis. This particular graph shows revenues for 2021 for all of your governmental funds was $14,892. As you can see, that's significantly below some of the metro area averages, which are close to 16,800, and the statewide average is of 16,000. So what this tells me is the district is operating at a level that is really receiving less revenues than your comparable district, both in the state as well as the 7-county metro area averages. I'm not here to provide opinions on how you manage yourself, but you are managing yourself within those boundaries, as you'll see on the very next page. Some of the other highlights I would point out on this particular graph is in the area of federal revenues. You can see in 2021 the increase in overall federal revenues the district received due to some of those entitlements that came from some of the dollars that came out of the federal government this past year. You also seen some dramatic declines in other local sources. Those really relate to operating under COVID again. There were less programs happening at the building levels, causing less other local sources. This particular graph shows some of the expenditure on the expenditure side, really showing expenditures on a per student basis. You can see in 2021, the district spent $15,313 per student, which is less than, again, both of those statewide averages. Why is that? Well, you're getting less revenues. So typically when you're getting less revenues and you're staying within yourself from a fund balance perspective, as you certainly are doing, you're going to have to spend less dollars per student, which is reflected up above. Some of the highlights from one year to the next, the district did have increases in some of the costs related to capital, related specifically to sites and buildings in some of those particular areas. You're also seeing some increases in instructional support categories in some of those categories as well. Lastly, I wanted to point out in the community service area, you are seeing some significant declines in expenditures. Well, there was significant downturn in overall programming in that active area as well. So it shouldn't be surprising that you're seeing less expenditures in that area as those programming under the COVID-19 environment was causing those challenges. So here we get into some individual fund activities. This is the general fund financial position over the last 5 years, showing cash and fund balance as equity position, and then the expenditures really showing the size of your operation if you're growing or becoming a bigger organization over time. And you can see certainly you are doing that. There is some significant increase in overall expenditures showing the changes in the size of your organization. What stands out to me in that particular graph mostly is just, again, the stability of this organization, of the district. That blue line and that yellow line really have not changed. They have changed subtly, of course, but they are showing a stable environment here at the district. This next graph actually takes those same numbers and puts it in a number format, and I put it up here because I think it's important to address and talk about one thing. And that is really the fund balance as a percentage of expenditures specifically to the district. The district does have a fund balance policy, and I want to make sure I don't misspoke, but it says the policy states the district will strive to maintain a minimum total unassigned balance in the general fund of 8 to 12% of the annual budget. So that is your goal. At the end of the year, as you can see on this particular graph, at the end of the year, that percentage is 13.1%. It's actually above, slightly above that particular range in fund balance policy that the board has adopted. And you can see it's, albeit on this particular graph, the district did expect to spend down its fund balance through the operating budget this past year. You are still well within the percentages that you would expect in terms of fund balance as a percentage of your overall operations. And again, very positive results in the general fund. We do want to reflect a little bit in this presentation on some of the results, specifically in the general fund and some other funds. I wanted to point out that in this particular fund, when I look at these particular funds, I like to look at, well, the actual results as it relates to expectations. And one of the things I like to reflect on in this presentation is when I ask questions to the staff here, I look at this particular graph when I'm doing my audit and ask questions. Well, why is this? And I always have very detailed answers that I get. Very quickly, very detailed, probably excessively detailed for an accountant's perspective. And that's very good. And when you look at this particular graph, overall the district's general fund was under budget by about $600,000. Most of that had relate to this number of students that you had. It was slightly below projections. And again, projecting the number of students in this environment was a challenge, and all districts did experience that challenge. This particular graph shows the general fund expenditures, and the district had significantly less expenditures than was budgeted. And again, most districts have experienced that this past year. A significant number of open positions throughout the past year. There were significantly less purchase services and instructional support areas, really challenging to even spend dollars in the COVID-19 environment that we were in. And then really just less overall supplies and materials, again, kind of going back to the environment that we were in. Really no surprises, I guess, but as an auditor, I'm mostly interested in, well, did they understand what was happening? And we certainly got exceptional answers in that regard. So the last presentation, or last two I'm going to talk about is in the other fund area. It's important to touch on the food service fund. You can see the food service fund financial results were very positive this past year. The community service fund did experience some challenges working in an environment where COVID-19 was happening and the community service area was challenging. I can say that this particular graph is very similar throughout our state when it comes to operating in that area. And then lastly, I want to touch on the district's self-insured funds. You are self-insured for both health and dental, and do have a separate fund to account for that. This past year, that particular fund had an increase in its overall equity position of about $1 million, raising its fund balance to roughly $5.2 million. And that particular fund is moving in a very positive direction towards accumulating the appropriate levels of fund balance that is needed to operate in that self-insured environment. So that is the end of that particular section and really the end of my presentation. So in summary, I was able to issue a clean opinion on that basic financial statements. They were issuing what's called a comprehensive annual financial report, and hopefully that reward will come to you. over the next year. We discussed the two minor findings, which were very minor in nature. We talked about the stable general fund balance, which is compliant with the policies of the board. And lastly, I just want to reflect on the overall audit again. The district business office staff and the finance department here is really providing very timely, thorough, really diligent work, and really providing, in my opinion, effective financial oversight and appropriate internal controls and systems and procedures that are really necessary in this environment. I shared at the previous presentation that this is one of the first audits that our firm is issuing, which really shows towards some of the comments I've made there in terms of providing timely and appropriate information. To get done with this audit at this time is certainly an achievement, and their business office staff should be rewarded for that. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for any questions you might have for me.
Okay, thank you. You have referenced, we did go into detail, quite a bit of detail, with a lot of questions at the study session. That's obviously recorded as well, and so I didn't want to go through all those again, because that's obviously available via tape and everything. I did just want to reiterate the part where you had said the federal funds, some of the accounting pieces, the reporting pieces are not finished, but that will be something that we'll close the loop on, and if needed, you'll need to come back or report back through Julie
Right.
on that. So
We will need to get the board's acceptance of that audit when it comes through.
right, but that's being kind of held up at the federal level.
Correct.
So, but that there'll be a loop there to close. But other than that, I think, I know we had a lot of great questions and kind of went into detail on a lot of things. So I know Julie's group has done a great job with it, and I know this is your second year, and glad to see that things that were corrected, didn't come back, and very minor findings this year. So very excited to see that. So thank you for all the effort, and thanks Julie's group too for it going so well. I don't know if anyone had any other follow-up questions or anything like that. Right? Yep.
I'd like to echo the thanks to Executive Director of Business Services, Julie Sink, and Andrea Murphy is in the back. I'd like to recognize her as well. Both of them just tremendous hours putting into this audit. And I think in conjunction with this audit report, in addition to the action earlier with refinancing a bond, as well as a strong fund balance through all this, I think it's clear to see that our school district remains in solid financial controls. And this audit is a validation of that hard work. So again, Julie and Andrea and your entire staff, I want to thank you for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And Julie, I think you're up next, right? Enrollment report?
Yes, I'm back up.
All right.
Let's see. So as we always do every year, we talk a little bit about our enrollment and where we are. Just when we talked about last June, we did a preliminary budget enrollment and looking at projections for this year. We are projecting 8,851 students. We talked quite a bit about looking at this budgeted, this for our budget, thinking that we would have our students returning in a non-COVID environment. As you know, we started the year more so, and we have been continuing in this environment. And so you can see what we had. I want to make sure that you understand that early childhood special ed, we have about 172 students participating, which we receive about 68 ADM from that. And so we add that to get our total for the year. So if we look at October 1, you can see we're slightly below what we predicted at 8,809. And we are predicting that still continuing with 68 for early childhood special ed. I think it's important to note that we are continuing to monitor this enrollment throughout the year. We typically have a trend that we lose about 70 students at our high school. I was very happy to see that our enrollment didn't change that much at our high school in the month of September. We usually see a decline there as well, but we did not this year. And so I'm happy to see that that has continued. So when we look at revising our budget for this year, some of the things that we did, we approved a budget in June, I think it was somewhere around June 12th. The legislature hadn't finished their work yet, and so what's not included in our current year budget is the 2.45% increase, and then this enrollment change. So we will be looking at that. We've already done some work on that for the final budget, and so those things will be modified as far as revenue. You can see this is by grade level, that enrollment, and you can kind of see how it compares to previous years. And then here's our enrollment history trend. You can see we've been climbing for several years, and that little blip last year, and I anticipate that we'll continue to climb as we move forward through the next several years. Any questions?
Julie, a lot of times when you go over the enrollment, you estimate some percentage loss or something like that by the end of the year.
The 70 students at the high
Right.
school.
Are we still budgeting for that this year? Do you think
Well,
that will
I
change?
do think so. One thing that I want to make sure when we budgeted at 8851. I think we'll look at somewhere around that 8,800 number. Because of the early childhood special ed, that total number will be somewhere around 8,800, I believe, as we move forward. And I think we've been digging quite a bit into our enrollment and analyzing some of our prior history. And so some of the work that we've been doing, I want to bring to our next finance committee meeting, and then maybe to the board as a whole at the next work session, just to kind of talk about enrollment and looking at a future look at what we think that enrollment will be. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Next up, personalized learning.
Thank you. Members of the board, Dr. Stallo, here to talk a little bit about e-learning and remind us that we had, and we were reminded recently when we looked at this, actually the topic came up when we had a school closure around the power outage that we had early in the year.
Okay.
Am I on the right topic? Sorry.
Hang on one second.
Sorry, Deanne, I hate to interrupt, but we did not, as a board, accept the audit.
Okay, sorry.
Shade, if we would maybe.
Go back to that. I
Sorry.
just see that now.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Dan, sorry, we're gonna put you on hold for a second.
Thanks, Julie.
Do I have a motion to accept the final audit report?
So made.
By Jonathan, second?
Second.
By Enrique. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Okay, Dan, sorry. Thank you for keeping me
All
on
right.
track, Martha.
You bet. So, speaking to the e-learning, back when we had our power outage at the beginning of the school year, it caused us to take a look because we had recalled that there was legislation that was put into place, if you recall, a few winters ago. I think it was the winter of 2018, when there were a number of snow days across the state of Minnesota, and I think we had, if I recall correctly, 6 snow days that year. The legislature that summer met and gave us the authority to authorize e-learning days. And so at the start of the 1920 school year, once again, that was the school year to take us all back in time, where near the end of the school year, the pandemic hit, we put in place an e-learning day memo and procedures around that so that we could have e-learning. Again, this was all pre-pandemic. So we dug into the background on that, and currently on our website, under the Parent tab and Emergency Closing tab, there is reference to e-learning. But we have not ever yet implemented that because we've been in distance learning and hybrid and all sorts of things in the last year and a half or 2 years plus. So as we embark on this year and we're back in person, we wanted to call that attention because part of that legislation was to inform our community that we would intend to implement e-learning days. So I'm here tonight to let you know, give you an update on that, and let you know that we are working to update that document, and we will be having that document, I predict we'll have it updated by the end of the month and sent out to our families, informing them that first inclement weather day would be a close of school, but subsequent inclement weather days we would go into e-learning. And the important thing about revising that document is to take the things that we learned through our time with distance learning. Again, all of this was pre-pandemic. We didn't have, we had limited experience with it. Now we have significant experience with it. So we wanted to draw from that experience as we plan out, should we have inclement weather days in which we would engage in e-learning. So just wanted to give you an update on that. Again, our intention would be to modify the attachment, the link that's embedded into that. But we'll keep it out on the website informing parents because it tells them specifically that our first day would be a no school day, but subsequent we would bring in e-learning, and fingers crossed we won't have a Halloween storm of 91. But we'll put that out and we'll be sending that to parents and we'll have it available on our website.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Anybody? No? Okay. All right.
At the next one.
Yeah, next up, a technology levy.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in on that one here.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. We, as you know, obviously, we've been back in-person learning now for approaching 6 weeks, and 6 in-person 5 days a week. But we wanted to share with you just a little update on how technology continues to be a valuable tool that we use, a teaching and learning tool, and worked with our tech integrationists across the district to capture some footage of how we are continuing to use our technology as we engage in in-person learning. So just going to share that with you here.
Still got a little work to do with the technology.
Slow internet.
A little buffering issue, huh? Unplanned, by the way. It is not allowing me to pause it. We'll call it.
As Marcus is coming up, I'll go ahead and you know, as part of our, anytime we go to our community with the request for funding, it's our responsibility to ensure that our community understands and has all the information that they need in order to vote and make the best decision possible. So we've continued our presentations, and several of you board members have joined Julie and Marcus and Dan and I across the district, presenting to our staff, presenting to different parent groups, presenting to different community groups. And actually, tomorrow night, right here, we will have another opportunity to have a technology levy information session here. People can either come into the DSC right here where we'll present information, or it will be live streamed online as well. So really important. And it was interesting, Marcus and I had a staff meeting at 3 o'clock today where we were talking about the importance of infrastructure, the importance of, we say that when technology, Marcus always says that the technology, when it works, no one worries much about infrastructure, and when it doesn't work, then we have a lot of concerns about that. So as we go forward, Marcus, are we okay? Perfect.
We'll see.
Well done, thank you. So again, we want to thank our technology integrationists for putting that together. We saw a lot of ways that we utilized technology when we were online learning and when we were hybrid learning, and really important, again, just to showcase what it means to teaching and learning every day now that we are back in school 5 days a week in person. As a reminder, and again, I'll be sharing information tomorrow night, but as a reminder, the tech levy will allow dollars, really important dollars for technology, but equally important, having a dedicated funding stream of technology will free up critical dollars out of our operating budget for other classroom staffing and student needs. So I think that's a very important piece of this to remember. I also wanted to do just a reminder right now on early voting. The district's technology levy request is the only question on the ballot. So all in-person voting prior to Election Day actually takes place right here at the District Service Center during the following hours. And we're going to be expanding those hours throughout October. So right now through October 29th, Monday through Friday, from 8 o'clock a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m. And all of this information is on our website, but I'll just say it verbally right now. Saturday, October 16th and Saturday, October 30th, the district will be open for voting from 9 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. Tuesday, October 26th, and Wednesday, October 27th, from 8 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m., so extending those hours for our community members. And then on Monday, November 1st, from 8 o'clock a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. You can also vote early by mail. You can download the absentee ballot application from our website and send it back as noted. And then, of course, on Election Day on November 2nd at your polling place. So just a couple of updates on that. The other thing, as we continue to get questions, either in the presentations that we do or through our email input address, we've been updating our FAQ. So as people ask us questions, if we've seen those questions a few times, we want to be sure to get the information on that FAQ. So lots of information on our website. Want to be sure people are really confident with answering questions or confident getting people to us at the district office to answer questions or to the website. Thank you.
Questions or
I
comments?
was just going to make a comment. One is I want to thank the teachers and staff who've let the school board members come into the classroom, because it's allowed us to see that using technology is not plopping kids down in front of individual devices and just being distracted. They are using it in the most amazing, creative, collaborative ways. And again, thank you for making space for us to come in and see and to witness that. And I just want to underscore what Dr. Stallo said. At least speaking for myself, school finance is a really complicated thing. So while it may appear, one of the questions we hear most often is that we're making computers more important than other things in our districts, such as staffing or teachers. The truth is, by creating that dedicated funding stream, that much more money is now available in the general fund for curriculum and for teachers and other staffing needs. And so really what we are doing is prioritizing some of those needs by trying to pull technology out and give it its own funding source. So if you have questions, anybody in the public, please reach out and we can help explain that better.
All right. With that, we'll move on to the Safe Learning Plan.
District Health Service Coordinator Kate Kyle will come in and share an update with you. We just can't seem to quite get out of that trend of sharing this information at every meeting, but I think it's important that the board and our public are updated and understand that we are continuing to take very seriously the monitoring of data so we can make really wise decisions for our students and staff and families. Thanks, Kate.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Stallo. I'm just going to give a COVID-19 situation update. Our 14-day case rate has steadily increased since August. Although there was a slight decrease in the case rate at the end of September, Scott County Public Health, their preliminary data does suggest that our case rate will be increasing again and likely be over 50 next week. Similarly to the county level data, we are seeing COVID-19 case rates in our schools increase. We had 15 student cases 3 weeks ago, 16 student cases 2 weeks ago, and our most recent case rate in students was 23 last week. However, based on our enrollment, this is still a relatively small percentage of our student population. Our case rate in staff also continues to be low. This past week, we only had 4 staff members out with COVID-19. As with the last board meeting, I wanted to review all of our data markers at our weekly COVID-19 Incident Command meetings. We review community transmission rates in Scott County, our COVID-19 case rates in our schools, particularly reviewing if there are patterns in the cases or a rate of absences due to influenza-like illness. We're also tracking our students who are in quarantine due to household exposures. Students and staff are only required to quarantine for household members if they are not vaccinated and have not had COVID-19 in the last 90 days, or if they do not have symptoms of COVID-19. We're also tracking staff absences, fill rates, and our open positions. When reviewing our school-specific data, we are seeing an increased number of students being called out absent due to illness. However, based on the data reported from families, the majority of our cases are not influenza-like illness, but rather mild cold symptoms. Based on conversations with families, I think people are being more cautious this year sending kids to school and keeping kids home even for some of those mild symptoms. In reviewing the COVID-19 cases in our buildings, we are seeing cases very sporadically in the buildings. The majority of our cases are being reported in the elementary schools, which makes sense since this school has the largest population of students who are not eligible for vaccination. We've not seen transmission in the classroom based on our reports. We have had a small number of classrooms with 2 reported cases, but then no further cases. But we're closely monitoring these classrooms to ensure we aren't seeing patterns in that transmission. I also wanted to touch on our COVID-19 testing grant. Initially, we had not pursued the COVID-19 testing grant, but Minnesota has dedicated $55 million of its epidemiology laboratory capacity reopening of schools for this grant. And the resources available through this grant are aimed at providing support for schools to detect and prevent the transmission of COVID-19. Grants could be used for items such as personnel, testing supplies, PPE, cleaning supplies, and hardware and software necessary for COVID reporting. While we had opted not to pursue testing at the beginning of the year, we have taken a closer look in the recent weeks due to the increased number of COVID-19 cases in the community and concerns that testing is not as readily available and accessible as it was last fall for families and staff who wish to pursue testing. We have pursued this grant to remove any barriers for those who wish to test. Testing, again, would be made available but completely voluntary for our staff and our students. Parents would need to request a testing kit for their student either by phone or in person, and consent would be obtained when the student is at home and completing the test via Zoom. Testing will only occur in the home, and the test would need to be brought back to the district office to be shipped in. Whoops, did I miss a slide? Oh, nope, I just skipped ahead too soon. Tests are processed within 24 hours after they have been received. Families and staff will be responsible for reporting their test results to the school. Additionally, even though testing will be made available for staff members and families, this would not be a requirement for a student to return to school. Testing will be an additional layer of mitigation offered for families and staff who wish to test. And we will share more information regarding this process at the end of the month when we have a finalized date for when the program would start. Anyone have questions?
Okay. I'll just follow up really quickly on that. And Kate, thank you again. I appreciate your incredible work and the work of your staff through all of this. Originally, when we had heard about the Minnesota Department of Education grant, again, that was really early in the process, and what we understood, or what I understood, was that it would have to be required. And since then, we have learned a lot more. We know that it is not required. Again, Kate went through that and talked about the consent, and that would only happen as an optional avenue for parents should they desire to. But as we continue to look at it, as we worked with Scott County Public Health and the Minnesota Department of Health, we realized that this is a resource that can help us, and it's a way that we can help families. So we wanted to go ahead, and we'll have a comprehensive plan and communication in place so families are well aware of that. Once we learn a little bit more and hear more about how the results of that application come out.
Any other questions?
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
Just point of clarification, if a family decides to take a test home and provide consent, they will be notified of the results, not the school district.
That's correct.
And when you say families and staff are responsible for reporting, they're not required, but it would be up to them to report if they had a positive result.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
Mary?
I have a question. I was under the impression that the state was on back order with the tests right now.
There are certain tests that are on back order. We are going to pursue the vault testing kits, which are not on back order. Some of the instant ones that are getting completed in certain schools, those are on back order.
Are the vault the PCR tests or the instant tests?
They are PCR tests, so they're more accurate. They might take a little longer, but versus the instant tests, they would have a more accurate result. Some of the instant ones, they're actually having you test, and if you test negative, they're saying to test again.
Yep.
So I just pursued the vault.
Okay.
Yeah, first off, Kate, I was thinking when you came back to talk to us again, it's been a wonderful highlight for however many meetings that we've been seeing you, and I really hope that sometime soon you don't have to come to our meetings. For your sake and for your family's sake. A math teacher once taught me about cross multiplying and dividing, and so just doing that quickly, case rate in the county around 50. Within our buildings, it looks like about 26 per 10,000. We don't quite have 10,000.
Yep.
How do we balance those two numbers as you guys are thinking about what we should be doing? And
So Terry and I meet with Scott County prior, and they really pull apart the data as far as age groups. And right now, the 0 to 19-year-olds are making up of 33% of all COVID cases right now. So we are seeing an increase. Again, it makes sense because the older population is eligible for vaccination, so the younger age group is going to have a higher rate of COVID cases and proportion of that.
It's just interesting to me, though, that we still see a lower rate of transmission within our schools.
And I think that's why, and you recall the conversations we've had around this table at meetings about what exactly do we want those data pieces to be. So as Kate said, our COVID-19 incident command team meets weekly, and we review the Scott County data that Kate and I would have just heard the meeting prior, all of the case rate data in our district, as well as some of that ILA data that we look at. And the other kinds of operational things to see how our staff are doing to ensure that we can continue to operate our schools. But you're right. I mean, our families and our kids are doing a fantastic job of the mitigation strategies, because our rates are in our schools, and, we have some large buildings, and they are falling much lower than we're seeing at the Scott County level, which is why we had said, let's have multiple data sets that we look at as we move forward.
Most important, to me, most important data point is what's happening in our buildings.
Yeah. Transmission
encouraged by
really,
that.
like we saw last year, it's happening in homes. That's where really we're seeing it, where mom tests positive or dad, and then child, and it kind of goes through the household. That's where we're seeing the most transmission right now.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate.
All right. Next up is set election canvas date for Monday, November 8th at 5:30. Right?
That's exactly right. You just read it. So we're
Do I have
just,
to, is there some official document or something I'm supposed to read?
do we need an official vote on that?
No, you just need to set the date and time.
We'll set the
I
date.
vote for it though, right?
No.
Do we vote for it? No? Okay. So I just say, we're,
Yep, so we'll know that, and then that will be, we'll post that meeting, but Monday, November 8th at 5:30 is when we will canvass
good for everyone?
the election results.
30 minutes before our normal board meeting? Is that not, head nods here? I guess you agree.
Yes.
Everyone's agreeing? Okay. Okay, we have agreement.
Thank you.
And we talked about this last time at the study session, is that we're gonna move the 14th date to February 7th, just due to some conflicts. And no one seemed to have a problem with that. So I'll make a motion to approve, or the movement of February 14th meeting to February 7th. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Enrique. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes and moves to the 7th. And then we have a first reading of policies. These were the first ones that had changes, so these had changes to them. We talked about them. I don't know. Most of them were, I can't remember.
Yep, they were reviewed at the September 27th study session.
I think a lot of them were like name changes and things like that. So unless anyone has any other questions or comments, we talked about a little bit of it, but there wasn't anything too major there. Those will come forward in the next board meeting. And then board policy approvals, so these were, this large list here was presented last meeting. There's absolutely no changes to any of these, not even a single word. So if we are okay with approving these as a whole, as a group listed?
Yep.
Everybody okay with that? So, do we have a motion to approve the policies as listed in your packet?
So made.
By Mary, second?
Second.
By Michael. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. On to administrative reports. Dr. Stallo?
Thank you very much. At Prior Lake Savage Area Schools, our mission is to educate all learners to reach their full potential as contributing and productive members of our ever-changing global community. And tonight, I'd like to highlight just a couple of things in which we've been engaged to make sure that that happens. First of all, I want to talk just a little bit about staffing. As you know, Our staffing levels in support roles and substitute teaching has hit a critical level, as it has in school districts throughout the state. Not only is the extreme staffing shortage creating a supply chain breakdown with essential vendors, it continues to impact our day-to-day operations. We're addressing the shortage from multiple angles, including staff, board members, and parent essential volunteers being all in to help serve in the school kitchens, help fill in for high substitute demands, and more. Wanted to share with you that last week we sent out a request to our parents to help us serve lunch at our school buildings, again, as essential volunteers, different than visitors, essential volunteers. We had 123 parent volunteers fill approximately 200 open slots within an hour.
Wow.
Thank you, parents, very much. And please, parents, I also want you to know that we have critical openings in child nutrition, custodial maintenance, health aides, kids company assistants, noon supervisors, lunchroom supervisors, student support paraprofessionals, and special education paraprofessionals. We would absolutely love for any of you who want to spend some time doing very rewarding work for our students. We would absolutely love it. A wider range of offerings with many options ranging from part-time to full-time work. And again, you saw those areas that we have critical needs. You can visit all of our openings on our website. And again, if you've got any questions, please contact me or Jim Quorum would be able to answer those questions for you. There's also opportunities, anybody with a 4-year degree, to be a substitute teacher. So lots of opportunities, and to see our families step up in such a short amount of time was really amazing. So really want to thank you for that. The second thing I'd just like to do is highlight and celebrate our board scholars. Board members, I know several of you had an opportunity to be at Prior Lake High School last week to greet and congratulate our board scholars. To be a board scholar, a student must have a cumulative GPA of 3.8 or higher. So we want to congratulate our 517 board scholars in grades 10, 11, and 12 who have worked really hard to earn this award. And thank you, board members, for you being able to help celebrate with them. Appreciate that.
We had a lot of kids tell us they're going to see us next year. Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
So, pretty fun. Administrative reports. Any?
I'd just foot stomp what Dr. Stalo talked about with openings, especially on the, she talked about all the support roles, but just emphasize that with teachers, if you want to substitute teach, that requires a 4-year degree, not a 4-year teaching degree. So any 4-year degree, and you can substitute teach. If you have any questions, call my office. We use Teachers on Call, so you actually become their employee, but we can sure help you with that process.
All right. No. Board reports. Any board reports? Anybody? Michael? Yeah.
So we had the AMSD meeting at the end of September, and there were guest speakers there about Pelsby, but I think the most important thing was the student panel that opened up the event. They brought in students who they open-ended, just asked them, what do you think we need to be focusing on? What are the legislative priorities? Where are you seeing needs in the schools? And it was a very moving and honest and vulnerable discussion. I believe there were 4 members on the panel, if I'm remembering correctly. And so I know any board members, if you have an opportunity to go back and to watch the video of that, hearing things directly from the students' voices reminds us that what we do at the table here has to be based on what we need to do to serve our kids. So that was great. I will also just say that I had the opportunity so far to serve a few lunches. I know several of you have. And I think that should be a required rotation for all board members in the future, just like we go in the classrooms to learn more about what's happening. It's fabulous to learn how hard our child nutrition staff works. They are the best multitaskers I have ever seen, and they are just so loving for every student who comes through their line. And a special thank you to the child nutrition staff at Jeffers Pond and Hidden Oaks for being gentle with training me in.
All right. Any other board reports? Oh, John?
Yeah, Community Ed Advisory Committee met last week. Terry did the presentation as well. Work continues to grow. I actually attended Sam Oak's simulation, as did Julie. And Amy, and a life kind of changing 2.5 hours. And then lastly, Friday was Scale. This month and next month, Scale is diving into the legalization of recreational use bill. And I'll actually say my perspective, because I'm on this board, just made me really pay attention. There was a lot of information, and I would say gives pause for me. And I think about it when we got a little bit involved with Prior Lake City Council's issues around vaping. I think it might be something for us to have some involvement and some activism as we look at a legislative agenda.
Okay. Any other? Oh, Enrique?
Yeah. So, as you all may know, it's been quite some time since the Special Education Advisory Council had met. We put out stakeholder engagement to try and solicit community members to participate in this portion of the process, because we have the staff, we have the administration, we have board members eager and willing to participate. With COVID, made it challenging to find community members, and then also timing of when this meeting would take place. So put out a survey and just received an outpouring of responses. 50 community members responded saying, yes, sign us up, we want in. We held our first SEEK meeting on September 28th, and there were, I believe, 24 community members who participated in that. Oh. And there were really 3 main topics. The first one, just kind of exploring the idea of an inclusion award for special education teachers, paras, caseworkers, those that are focused on special education, whether it's peer recognized or from the family perspective, but having that opportunity to recognize those that are doing and delivering all that wonderful work to all of our children and families. Seemed to, getting choked up, seemed to resonate with the group. The second topic was on just general delivery of services throughout COVID. Well, I'll back up. All of our little superheroes require different levels of service to attend to their specific needs. Not all of them can be attended to by Google Meets or at a distance. Some of them require parent involvement to step in where they don't have that face-to-face or that in-person presence of a para to provide those services for them. So it was an opportunity to gather those stories to figure out what exactly were we missing, what were the students missing, what were the families missing, and how do we just have that conversation on how do we recover those services for those that were missing those critical functions over the course of the pandemic. So yeah, it was very deep, heartfelt.